he inspired me at that point, and it has been a goal of mine ever since to do that. And fortunately, I've been able to achieve that. I've been working as a solo performer.
Yes, it's extremely difficult to get up on the stage alone and to keep the audience's attention. When did you find that you could master that?
It's only in the last maybe 10 years that I've been able to really get a handle on it. And I think the most rewarding experience I had doing that was on a tour with Bob Dylan and Tom Petty. We were over in Berlin before the wall came down. We were on the eastern side, and the audience was 140,000 people in a park. And I was up there with one acoustic guitar, and I sang Mr. Tambourine Man, and the whole place went crazy. They started lighting their cigarette lighters, and, you know, it was like a scene out of, you know, some kind of a movie or something. It was amazing.
Yeah, I guess in that sense, for people around the world, you're kind of the ambassador from the 60s that they never had. You kind of represent major change, so I guess you would have power over an audience like that.
There was an emotional tide that was unbelievable at that point.
There's a question here, this overlaps with the question a moment ago about your contemporaries from the 60s who went on to solo careers. How about a guy like Neil Young, who actually very successfully made the change? There's a question here about whether or not you feel like jealous of a person like that, because
not at all. No, I have nothing but you know, I'm very happy for Neil. I like him very much, and I like his work. And no, I'm not jealous at all. I feel you know, very content with my lot in life. You know, if you want, I'm not worried about being a big star or anything like that.
Did you appear at that Bob Dylan thing recently?
Yes, I did.
Maybe could you tell us about that a little bit, how it was, and what exactly you did?
It was great. My shot in it was I did Mr. Tambourine Man, and I was backed up by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And then I did my back pages with Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, Neil Young, George Harrison, Eric Clapton, and a couple other people up there, G.E. Smith. And I took the first verse, and each of us took a verse, and we all sang the choruses on that. And then I did Knockin' on Heaven's Door at the end with everybody, where I was up there. It was fun.
A lot of younger listeners, for example, guitar players, they'll listen to like Eric Clapton, they can get into it, but when he starts to talk about Robert Johnson, and they listen to Robert Johnson, they feel very disoriented, disillusioned, because they can't see what Clapton sees in a Robert Johnson. Similarly, people who got into the Byrds or into your solo stuff might have trouble with listening to Dylan, you know, just Dylan alone, and they wonder what you saw in Dylan. How would you explain Dylan's allure?
Well, I think he's an artist who stands on his own. I wouldn't say he, you know, was so obscure that people would have a hard time getting into him. I mean, he's played Budokan over there and stuff. You know, he's a big artist. You know, I wouldn't really compare him to Robert Johnson, but I just liked his lyrics. I thought he wrote really great lyrics, and had, you know, brought thinking man's music into vogue. Before that, it was all kind of bubblegum in pop music.
Right.
And he really brought it into a place where people were thinking.
I guess for the non-English speaker, though, it may be kind of hard to pick up on that side of him.
I guess so. That would be a barrier, right? They'd have to have a good translation of his lyrics. And
ironically, it often seems that Dylan's best songs are the cover versions done by other artists, because they seem to have given the songs a sort of universality, you know, a side that people can enjoy. Whereas when Dylan performs them alone, they seem rather dry, unemotional.
Well, I don't find that. I've seen him perform really, you know, heated, fiery performances of his songs, so I can't relate to that.
There's some questions here on the Byrds. On what sort of terms are you with Chris Hillman and David Crosby now?
Well, the last time we worked together was at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We did a show with, we did, you know, a few songs at that dinner where we were inducted into the Hall of Fame. And that was about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And that's really the last I've seen of him. And I really don't have any desire to do the Byrds anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a fitting end to the Byrds, to be inducted into the Hall of Fame like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the Byrds box set coming out was a nice kind of a farewell tribute to the Byrds, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I feel about the Byrds.
Yeah, so the book is closed.
Yes.
Why wouldn't you want to just go back to try to sort of recapture the magic, though? Isn't there a sort of a feeling of curiosity, or?
Well, I don't think it would be magic. I think it would be more like an oldies group, It would be a '60s cover band or something. I mean, it'd be, it wouldn't be fresh and new anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have any of the other guys expressed interest in doing it?
Yeah, they have. Crosby's been after me to do it, and I really don't want to.
Just a flat-out no, huh?
Yeah.
There's an interesting question here that says, if, well, let's just say, hypothetically, all the original members got together again and you had to do just 5 songs, which 5 songs do you think you would do?
I don't know. It's, first of all, Gene died last year,
mm-hmm.
and so all 5 members couldn't get together
mm-hmm.
again, and, it's too hypothetical a question to answer.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, about this, the box set, Full Flight, there's talk over here about it having maybe sold out by now. So the reception has been very good. There are remixed versions on the box set?
Right. I went into the studio in New York and helped him remix some of that stuff because the original mixes were really pretty bad. They were in mono and everything.
Mm-hmm.
We had to remix them for stereo.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Was that your idea originally, or did the record company ask you to come in and do it, or?
Yeah, Don DeVito at Sony Music invited me to help him out with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was glad for the opportunity to have a hand in it.
How was it going back over that stuff? I mean,
it was really great. I enjoyed it. It was a real, it brought back some memories. It was really fun.
I mean, I'm sure you're not in the habit of pulling out old Byrds records at home and relaxing to that stuff, right?
Not usually, but every once in a while I will, just to see what they sound like now. And most of them stand up pretty well.
Uh-huh. How about your ensuing solo stuff after that? Do you go back and reflect over that as well?
Not as much, but although I did have the opportunity to go in the studio with Don DeVito and put together a compilation of my old solo stuff,
mm-hmm.
which came out, I think they called it Born to Rock and Roll.
Mm-hmm.
It's on Columbia Legacy.
Is that an international release, or was that just in the States?
I don't know. I really don't know if it was international.
Were you close to Gene Clark before he died?
Well, the last time I saw him was at the Hall of Fame dinner, and he looked fine.
Mm-hmm.
And no, we hadn't been, really in communication much. But there was no animosity either.
Right, right. But you basically really have not had any sort of ties with the original members of the Byrds, huh?
Not really, no. Everybody's been pretty busy, Hillman's got the Desert Rose Band, and Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Clark's been going around playing as the Byrds in the United States.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Who does he work with?
I don't know. He's got some guys in the band. I don't know.
So that would be just sort of the covers band you were talking about then?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, this must be a trivia question or something. It asks, what degree of involvement did you have in Easy Rider?
I wrote the song, The Ballad of Easy Rider,
mm-hmm.
and performed It's All Right, Ma, and Wasn't Born to Follow
mm-hmm.
on the soundtrack.
And how did your involvement in that come about?
Well, Peter Fonda was a friend of mine at the time,
mm-hmm.
and still is, and he was a big fan of the Byrds, and he used a couple of our songs on the soundtrack from the records.
Uh-huh.
Well, he used Wasn't Born to Follow, and then he wanted a song that was specifically written for the movie,
mm-hmm.
like a title song.
Right.
So he went to New York. He asked Dylan to write it, and Dylan wrote down "The River Flows." He scribbled some stuff on a paper napkin, and he handed it. He gave it to Fonda, and he said, "Here, give this to McGuinn." So Peter flew up back to L.A. where I was living and gave me this paper napkin, and it said, "The river flows."